Good Monday morning. Can you believe it's Monday and it's beautiful again? I'm so glad, but it is going to be hot here on the East Coast. So stay cool, guys. We are here today with ASMM Digital Small Business Connections. We are the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. The idea is to give you something you can walk away with and put to work in your business, something that you can think about going forward today and throughout the week. So we're hoping that you get something out of this. We've got a special guest today. We've got Maka. She's going to talk about how to handle life in the pandemic as a business owner. I'm really excited about having her here. I want to remind you, if you're watching this, you can see it below. Follow us, please, and subscribe to us on YouTube. That's very helpful because we cannot monetize until we have 1,000 subscribers. And even then we have to have 1,000 subscribers and then a lot of views. So we really do need your help. If you can go over there and subscribe, that would be very, very helpful. If you are watching this live, we're episode 71. Whether you're watching it live or not, we're episode 71, but we're streaming, and we're streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on YouTube, and we're streaming on Twitter. I tell you this because that means you can ask us questions. Please do ask questions. We have people on here at least twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, who can help you with your business. So please ask questions and make comments. Let us know you're there. Let us know what you're thinking, and let us know how we can help you. If you have questions, not just for our guests, but for me, ask me. If you have questions or things that you want us to bring on later, if you're like, hey, I'm having this problem and you still haven't talked about it, let us know. We want to help you. So let me introduce you to Maka. Cindy is a travel agent who I met through BNI, and I'm super excited about having her on because she has learned a lot during this pandemic. She made the move to be an entrepreneur right before it started, and she's done a great job so I want to talk to her. Hi, Cindy. How are you?
I'm good, Anne. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
I'm so glad you came. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and then I introduced you to my son and said, oh my gosh, he's going to love you. So I knew I wanted to have you on. So I'm glad you could come on. Tell us a bit about what you do.
So I plan and guide completely customized adventures of a lifetime. My husband and I are lifelong travelers, and we take each of our nieces and nephews on a trip with us for about 10 days abroad. And that's their graduation present. When they graduate from high school, they get a trip with us. And it's our chance to get to know them as adults and to make sure that each of them had an experience outside the United States, because that our time abroad for my husband and I was really important to us. And these became these really involved, detailed trips that you couldn't get anyplace else. And that's what sort of gave me the idea for the business. So many times, go ahead.
Well, I love what you do because the reason we introduced you to Ethan is he loves history. He loves history. And so when he travels, he does everything he can to find out about the history about a country and then go from there. So it was like, oh my gosh, this is a match made in heaven. So you're going to be helping Ethan, I know, plan his upcoming trip.
Yes, we had a great time talking about it as soon as he figures out where he's going to go.
Exactly. Well, and that's hard, right? Because of the pandemic, everything is crazy.
Well, not even that. There's just so many places.
Exactly.
Narrowing it down once we are able to travel. And for a lot of people, they don't want to take the time to plan a trip. So some people love planning trips, and
right.
I'm not the travel guru for them.
Right.
I'm more than a travel agent. I can do those little things, but for me, it's getting to know you. What do you want to do? Because often with the package tours, who wants to go with 20 of your closest strangers?
Right.
And invariably you do these tours and they're going to go someplace you don't want to go. And then they'll be in this really cool place and you've got 30 minutes.
Right.
And you're like,
right.
I could spend my life in this room.
Yes,
so
exactly.
The trips I plan are completely customized to the person going on the trip. And that way you get everything you want. Our most recent trip to Scotland, my husband found these awesome podcasts because we knew we were going to go to Hadrian's Wall. And then in planning the trip, I discovered the Antonine Wall. So we had these awesome series of podcasts that talked about the Romans as they were building the wall, who the Picts really were. And so we're driving around Scotland through these places, listening to these really great historical podcasts. And
that is amazing. I forgot we'd actually talked about that because Ethan and I when he graduates from grad school, so not next summer, but the summer after, we're going to walk across Hadrian's Wall. So we're going to walk
That's right. You said that.
across England. So we're super excited about that. And I will say to you, if I had talked to you even 2 years ago, I would have said, yeah, you're probably not the one for me, because I, generally like planning my trips. But in December, we planned a trip to New Zealand, and we went, I think we left on December 17th, and December 2nd, I still had not planned a thing because I was so busy. I was so busy with work. I wasn't, I wasn't able to plan. And so I literally called Anastasia and said, hey, you went. Tell me where you went, and let's just book those places. That's what I'll do. I'll do exactly what you did, because I don't have time. And so it was good. It was a good trip, but there were things that had I had time that I would have probably liked to have seen. So it would have been nice to have somebody like you plan the trip. And so, well, let's talk about, though, you haven't always been, you've always loved travel, but you haven't always been the expert or the one who would help other people. You've been the expert for a while, but you haven't been the one helping other people. So tell us how you changed careers, because you were with another company for a very, very long time.
I was. I'm actually still with them. Thank goodness. That's sort of what's letting me stay through the pandemic. But I started thinking about, where do I want to retire? Do I want to stay where I'm at? Or is there something else I want to be doing? So I hired a career coach. And if you are thinking about changing careers, I highly recommend it. Having someone to bounce ideas off of and hold you accountable is a really helpful tool. So knowing that I was like, okay, do I want to do something else? And my career counselor had these wonderful lists of 15. 15 times I had the most fun. 15 things I'm the most proud of, and asking other people and coming to get up with 15 times other people thought I was awesome. And the theme that kept coming back and back and back was travel. Trips I'd planned, things we've seen, the ways I'd handled difficulties while traveling, like being caught in the cool in Istanbul in the airport. That was fun. Oh. But, dealing with those and making it easier for those traveling with me, travel just kept coming up. So that's
right.
Sort of how I did that. And I think a lot of us are taking time during the pandemic to think about our careers. I'm thinking of people who maybe aren't in business for themselves and have realized now that being home, this is a really cool thing, being able to work from home. And,
right.
But once the pandemic's over, will my job let me? Is there a way I could become an entrepreneur? And,
right.
So, or realizing how much, now that you're home, how much you really hated your job and you want to do something else.
I have heard that a lot. There's
just a lot of chances for introspection, and, career counselors can really help.
And I think part of it is that people have come home and maybe they're making less money, and suddenly they realize, okay, I always thought it would be impossible to live with less money. And so that's why I haven't gone out on my own. Right. Yeah. And if they realize that and they go, okay, well, look, I can survive this. And so I can take this risk. It's not as big of a risk now. So it makes it easier to do. Right. So, all right. I do want to talk about, because this has been hard. When did you start the company exactly?
I started it February.
Hold on. I cut you off somehow. So sorry. You started it February
of last year.
Okay.
And my mom got really sick. So I put the whole thing on hold for about 6 months and kicked it back up in the fall, and seriously started my networking in February.
Okay. Oh, the February of this year. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm a member of a BNI group, and my coach and I realized that I'm not the kind of business where people are going to Google and find me. I'm too specific, and that word of mouth and referrals are really the way that I'm going to get my business, and BNI is a perfect venue for that. So my goal for the spring was to find a BNI group and join them. And I found one in February. I was so happy. I went to 2 in-person meetings, and and then the pandemic.
And then it went all online. Yeah. But it's not been bad. It is different, but it's not been I thought it would be horrible. Honestly, I thought I'm not going to be able to network this way. I'm a hugger. I
Oh, me
walk in the
too.
room. I'm a big personality,
Me
and
too.
how am I going to handle this, right? And it's not been bad at all.
No,
So
the online stuff really has been fine. I do miss contact, but you can still get to know people. And
exactly,
in some ways, it's more convenient because you don't have to drive anywhere to meet anybody. It's certainly keeping expenses low because you're not buying lunches or coffee or things.
exactly.
Um,
Well, and your one-to-ones are
mhm,
I feel like your one-to-ones are almost more in depth because of the because we're doing it this way, right? So
mhm.
I'm sitting in my office, you're sitting in your office, and we don't have people sitting in the next table who are hearing everything we have to say, right?
Right.
So it's almost more intimate, I think.
Well, there is, and
So
there's fewer distractions. I think the group meetings, you have to work at being engaged.
right,
With everybody on small screens, not always on the same screen, there's not as many people going, why is she playing with her phone instead of, the meeting?
exactly,
But for
exactly.
me, this has been really challenging. Sort of good news, bad news. I didn't have a bunch of clients, so there was only one trip that had to get canceled.
Right,
But at the same point, I don't have a huge client database that I can be reaching out to about future travel. And I am not going to encourage anyone to travel until we have some solid answers. I see a
absolutely.
lot of travel agents on the various lists I'm in getting all excited about booking a cruise next year. And I'm like, 2021. Can
Who
you,
knows, right?
how can you in good conscience, and I get it's your living. Um,
Right. But
but
how can yeah.
I can't
Yeah,
because
I mean, we've planned a trip where we're just renting a house a couple of states over, and we're going to be in the middle of nowhere, and we're going to be, we're not going to see people. And still, it took us months to make ourselves plan it because we're like, who knows what's going to happen? Can we even leave the state? Can we do that? And so I can't imagine planning a big trip. I
yeah.
just can't imagine doing that.
And there are things, certainly within the United States, there are places like what you're doing. There are easy ways, places to go, things you can do that are safe, especially if you're like renting a house. So you're in the house, you
Right.
can clean it, um, and still do fun things, especially if
Right.
there's outdoor activities around. So there's plenty of things to do. Like I wouldn't be worried going to a cabin on the Grand Canyon
Right.
because you can do a lot of hiking. Although there's people on the trail, that trail was hard enough without any kind of face mask on. I don't know if I can
Exactly.
survive
Yeah.
with a mask, but um,
Exactly.
if
Exactly.
you take the donkey ride down, those donkeys are 6 feet apart, so you'd
Yeah.
be
So
fine.
so how are you keeping it up? We're talking about don't give up. And I just got a call from somebody who said, I just started my business and I just don't think it's gonna work. Um, how are you encouraging people not to give up on this?
Because it is going to end, and
Right.
for me, I am using this time and really think about longer term goals. As as I said, for me, networking is the big thing. I need a contingency of people who know me and trust me, who realize that when Cindy says she's going to do something, she does it. She follows through well. She pays a lot of attention to detail. And I am really working on my networking. So I'm going to my BNI meetings. I'm doing one-to-ones. I'm visiting other chapters. So I'm looking at that broader picture. And I can now do all these things without the pressure of having to plan 5 trips at once or
Right.
whatever I would be working on if there was business, getting to know some of the destinations a little bit better. The hard thing is getting to know some of the people supplying the either tours or travel because
Right.
you don't know what hotels are still going to be in business, what tour groups are still going to be in business. Um, my big advice to people is get insurance and look for a bankruptcy clause in your insurance. If you're planning a trip now, even if it's 2 years away, you don't know who's still going to be in business. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's
I was thinking the same thing, right? Who knows who's going to survive this, right?
right.
So, the other thing I think that when you're talking about longer term goals, and actually, again, I do this once in a while where I have a guest on and I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to give you a piece of unsolicited advice. But you've done a lot of trips, you've
Mhm.
gone to a lot of places. So, one of the things that I would suggest for you, and I would suggest for anybody, is to write about what you know, right? So in your case, write about some of the trips, write about some of the locations you've been to, some of the things that maybe we went when we were in England, we went to, so create a blog basically, or create a blog, a video if you want to talk about it. But we went to the, where they planned Dunkirk. So in Dover, right? I can't think of what, like the tunnels that are in the cliffs. And it was amazing. And nobody told us to go there. We just happened to go to see the castle. And they're like, do you want to take a tour of the tunnels? And we were like, wait, what tunnels? And then we were like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was like not something people had talked about. But those sorts of things that people don't necessarily know about or know that you know about are really great thing to put on your blog, because then when somebody's looking for those particular tunnels, they're looking for World War II history, that's a great place for them. They'll find you. It's a great way for them to find you online.
Okay.
So
that's a great idea.
yes,
Thank
you. Yeah. So I encourage blogs, and all of us think we talked about this Friday. We think we've got this imposter syndrome, that we're not really as good as we think we are. We're not really, people are going to find out that we're not as good as we think we are. But when you start writing down the things it is amazing how much you can put out there in the world, and it will come back to help you with your social media, with your website, with your Google, and all of those things that will help you with.
That's great advice.
Yeah, so that's a great way to think long term. And you could even write a blog, what you just said, the bankruptcy calls. That had not occurred to me. I'd said, let's get insurance, make sure we have insurance on whatever we do. But yeah, the bankruptcy calls, it didn't even occur to me there might not be one.
Yeah. One of the things I'm doing after the show and the rest of this week is the American Society of Travel Agents is having their annual convention. It was going to be here, and I'd registered back the end of last year to attend because it's here in DC, and they're having a virtual one, and I'm like, do I want to go? Do I not? I'm like, you know what? Again, I'm not going to give up. I'm committed to this, and I've got 3 appointments with 3 separate travel companies so I can learn about their business, what they're doing, how their policies have changed, what I need to let my clients know. But there's also really great speakers and panels and educational opportunities going on. So if you are starting a business, look for organizations and see if they're doing virtual stuff. It's so much cheaper than going in person, not just your own travel costs, but they're reducing the cost of the registration.
It is, yeah.
Again, plan long-term, take advantage of this virtual environment. Am I thrilled at the prospect of spending 8 hours on my butt in front of this screen? No, I'm not. But
exactly.
half of these are listen only, which means I can take my phone, I can go sit outside, I can go play with the cat.
Right. You can go for a walk.
I can go for a walk. So they're not going to, and which you couldn't do if you're at the actual conference.
Right.
So
exactly.
There are ways to build your networks and don't lose sight of the picture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it is. So one thing that I said is when this first started, we all said, oh, they're not going to close everything down. That's not going to happen because that's never happened before. That's just not going to happen. And then once this happened, there are a lot of people who have the mindset that this is the way it's going to be from now on. And they're like, we're never going to return to normal. And I don't know that that's true. I really don't, because I think, how do we know? And maybe it won't be exactly the same, but I think a lot of things will go back to normal and it will be okay because we've had that life for so long. We know it's sort of like saying, oh, I've been dieting and this is the new way that I live. It's my new lifestyle. Well, yeah, Christmas comes along and you eat for 5 days in a row, you eat really naughty stuff, and it's really easy to fall back in that old way. So I don't think it's going to be impossible for us to go back to the old normal, right? So,
it's going to be all too easy to stop washing your hands for 20 seconds, It's going to be real easy to go back to the 5-second hand wash. I mean, admit it, most of us have done it. You're like, oh, wait, no.
I shook hands with somebody yesterday and I did it before I even thought about it.
Yep.
And I think he did the same thing. He put his hand out and I shook it and I was like, oh my God. And there's no bathrooms around. Like we were, believe it or not, we were at a concert. It was a socially distanced concert for our kids, but it was just, I couldn't believe it. It's such there are habits that are just part of us and we can work really hard to not do it. And then suddenly you're like, oh my God, I just did that.
Yep.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk about surrounding yourself with positive people, because I will say when this started, there was a person I completely ended up cutting out because everything she had to say was negative. And I was like, I can't live there. So how have you managed to do this?
I have someone like that as well. And every response is, I'm positive back, but it takes a lot of my energy.
Yes.
And it's recognizing those people. And that doesn't mean you love them any less. Doesn't mean they're any less of a friend, but you are going to spend a little less time around them. And
Right.
I find myself commenting on posts more than I used to, not just hitting the like button, but letting people, giving them that feedback. I have a friend who's
Absolutely.
been volunteering giving COVID tests.
Right.
And I wrote back to her and I said, you are one of the bright souls in the universe. Just people, if you give it out, you will get it back. So when you've got those people who are doing really cool things that make you feel good, then follow them, comment on their posts, start a dialogue with them. You and I were talking, well, I'll get to that later, but what podcasts make you happy? I've stopped watching as many violent TV shows. I watched Clue last night because it is an awesome, funny movie, and it made me happy. 2 nights ago, we watched the animated Coco because it's a wonderful, delightful movie, and it made me happy.
Yes,
So,
it is. I love
yeah.
that one. So, Dana, just so you know, we watched Onward. I'm going to give you a quick review of Onward. I thought it was adorable. It really was. But I cried so hard at the end of that movie. So maybe not the best one if you're looking for an uplifting movie. I really did cry very hard at the end of that movie. So maybe avoid that one. So
Well,
we've been doing the same thing though.
and there are good cries and bad cries.
Exactly.
So
So,
it's
yeah,
be
I love
more
the
aware of
movie.
yourself, right? These are trying
Exactly.
times. Do the things that enrich you. Before the show started, you and I were talking about the Calm app. I
Oh
love the
yeah.
Calm app. It has
Yeah.
really grounded me and centered me. And what I loved is it had, how to meditate, 30 days. And they were
Right.
taught you different techniques. There's a daily calm that I now do every day that my 30 days are over. And I may go back and listen to the 30 days again just because some of the techniques were interesting.
Yeah.
There's a
It,
7 days of sleeping better. There's just really good stuff in there. I think my next one is going
exactly.
to be LeBron James did a series, and I'm really curious because I didn't know he was a
On
meditator.
there?
Yes.
On Com?
Mhm.
Oh, I'll have to go and listen to that. So I fell asleep with Matthew McConaughey most nights actually because he
I
has a story on there.
I just listened to that one last night. I heard his introduction, which is really cool, and
Yes.
then the story started, and I was out.
That's the funny thing. I was like, I'm never going to be able to do this because I listen to audiobooks. So I'm never going to be able to listen to this and go to sleep. But every time I go to sleep, and actually every time I go to sleep with his voice. So now I'm like, I'm not listening to anybody else. I'm just going to listen to Matthew McConaughey.
I like the Harry
So,
Styles one. That's also really good.
oh, I did listen to that one. Yes, I like that one too. So, so I was going to tell you something about the app. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. So I thought meditation was, I actually really did think, okay, well, you sit there and you put your hands out like this and you have a certain way and this is how you do it. And I can't do that. And I listened to somebody who was like, it's not what you think it is. Just close your eyes and follow along and it'll be okay. And so I literally started with my iWatch and I started with it on 1 minute of breathing. And then
Mhm.
I went to 2 minutes of breathing. And then I got to 5 minutes of breathing. And after I did that for a few days, I was like, this isn't enough. I need more. And so that's how I ended up with the Calm app. And it has been an amazing addition to my life. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. I had seen a counselor and she suggested this breathing exercise, and it's changing the way you breathe. And you had to do it for 20 minutes twice a day for 30 or 60 days before your body adjusts. And I did it and I kept doing it. And now the 10-minute meditations, I'm like, this is a breeze. 10 minutes, piece of cake.
Yeah. I will
But I
say,
find myself doing
Cindy,
more.
I want to go. Yes, I do it. I do several times a day. But I wanted to go to a meditation, and that was my plan for this year. That was my big goal for this year. I'm going to go to a meditation retreat, and then COVID hit. So, and they're all closed. So
Right.
I am not going to a meditation retreat. And they've got some that you can do at home, but I'm like, I have a dog and a kid. I'm pretty sure that spending an entire day meditating isn't going to happen in my house. So anyway, all right, let's go back to what we were going to talk about, which is selling hope. That's, and we're going to travel again. It's going to
We
be
will.
okay.
It really will be okay. And it may not be exactly the way, as you were saying, it's not going to be exactly the way we thought it will be. There will be new normals. And maybe we always wear a mask on an airplane, although airplanes have some of the best filtration systems,
Right.
out there. It's going to be contact there more than it's going to be getting something just randomly through the air. But, maybe we all take our cleaner with us, or every hotel room leaves a bottle of disinfectant so for sure it's been cleaned.
Right.
But it is going to happen again. People are flying now. Countries are slowly reopening. If folks are interested, I do have a couple of websites that I use to see who's open when and what the restrictions are. There are a couple of really good sites out there for that. And I'm happy to answer any of those questions.
That'd be great.
But,
yeah, I wanted to go back down to the Keys, and we had the same thing. Part of it right now is that all the storms are coming.
Right.
So, I'm a little nervous about that as well. So there's a lot to think about. So, but tell everybody what you're planning next. What's your next big trip? What do you want to do?
Well, we've got a nephew who has a trip to Austria coming. I was in the beginning planning stages of that. I waited and I went ahead and booked the flight because I found a really good Lufthansa flight. And that was the only thing that I booked. So Austria is coming at some point, and we got some really neat places to go. And since then, another niece has graduated from high school, and unfortunately we couldn't go to the graduation. Her trip is Japan, and it's going to be animal themed. So
that's amazing.
It's going to be an animal themed. There's a fox sanctuary. There's a rabbit island. We may or may not go see the snow monkeys because I really don't want to take the trip in winter because I don't like a lot of snow. Just to see a bunch of monkeys sitting in a hot spring is not a reason to travel in winter for me. I'm not a skier or anything. I'd much rather do cherry blossoms or fall leaves than I would do snow. But if it's going, we'll go to Nara and see the deer.
That'll be great. Austria, there's a little town called Klagenfurt, and it's just over the line from Italy. So it's really neat town because it's definitely Austria, but it's got such an Italian influence because it burned down in the early 1900s. And the entire town. And when they rebuilt it, all the workers and all the architects came from Italy. So it's got a little piazza, and it's a really neat little town, and it's on a gorgeous lake, and it's in the Alps. So it's a wonderful place to go for summer. We went up 2004, actually. We were there in 2004. So it's lovely. And that was all we saw. We just went to Klagenfurt.
Neat.
But we spent the entire week there.
I found a place that I'm really excited to go to because we've when we were in Greece, we went to Mykonos and went to see I don't remember. There's another island we went to that had these awesome Roman ruins.
Okay.
It actually had some of the facades enough that you realize that these were actually dark streets. Like when you were in the street itself, there wasn't a lot of light getting through, which is why the courtyards were so important. And you're trying to imagine what this looked like when there were people living there. There is a town in Austria where they have rebuilt these buildings. So you can actually, and they let you walk through them. So they're replicas, but they're set up based on the ruins they found. So you're actually walking through a Roman house. And I'm really excited.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, that is really neat. Have you actually? There's two Roman, oh my gosh, Colosseums that I find pretty amazing. The one's in Nîmes, and that is more intact than the one in Rome, which is real. And they actually, from at least the last time I was there was by the 90s, they still had concerts there, which I thought was amazing. It's like I so want to go to a concert and that.
Right.
But there's also one in Wales, in England, and it is not intact, and it's actually almost completely buried. So grass has grown over it, but it's really pretty cool to see because it's so old that, like I said, the grass has almost completely overtaken it. But it's pretty amazing thing to see. There's so much to see in the world. So yes, I love you said selling hope. That's what you sell, and that is amazing about the world that is around us. There is so much to see.
Right, which is part of why I love travel. The more you travel, the more you learn about yourself. I spent a
Yep.
year study abroad in Japan, and that's when I learned who I was, why I love America, and why I love traveling. I'm always going to be an American.
Right.
I'm, people are like, oh, I don't want to wear sneakers or backpacks. People will know I'm an American. And I'm like, as soon as I open my mouth, they're going to know I'm an
They're
American.
gonna know you're American.
I just have to make sure I'm the best American I can be
Exactly.
when I
Exactly.
travel abroad,
So,
you know.
and people will say, that is one thing I will say. People will say, "Oh, they hate Americans wherever you go. They hate Americans." That is not what
It's
I have
not
found.
true. Not true.
No. Well, and I will tell you, when we went to France, when we went to Normandy, it was definitely not. People welcomed us in. They brought us in for dinner, and it was just like the most welcoming place. But and the same thing about New Zealand. People there loved Americans and loved talking to us, and it was wonderful. So I don't think you're treated poorly
No.
most places.
I've heard bad things about being an American in Paris. And
Right.
no, we were standing on a street corner looking horribly lost, and this woman came up to us, and her English wasn't great, but she was, wonderfully helpful and pointed us in the right direction, and we were grateful. And
One of my favorite stories, and then we have to go on to something else, but I do want to tell you a France story that just tickled me so much. Ethan and I were sitting in a Starbucks, believe it or not, in Paris, and had just opened, and it was right down from our hotel. So we went in, and we're sitting there, and this was when we lived in England. So we were only over for the weekend, and Ethan had a spelling test on Monday. So we were going over his words. And I would ask him his word, and he would go to spell it. Well, there was a woman sitting beside us who kept kind of paying attention, and you could tell. And finally, I was like, "Am I bothering you?" And she says, "No, but can I guess too?" And she was French. She's like, "I'm studying English, so can I guess too?" And I was like, that is the sweetest thing to have. This, here I am giving my son a spelling test, and the woman wants to join us. I thought it was just the sweetest thing. Yeah. So, all right. So tell us how people can find you.
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. My website is there on the screen. It's undreamed-shores.com, which comes from William Shakespeare, to undreamed shores and wait, I always get the silly quote wrong. To unpath waters. Okay, that's just embarrassing. I don't even know my own quote.
So while you're looking for that on Twitter, on Facebook and Instagram, how do they find you? Under your name or under your business name?
Under my business name.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'm actually gonna find you as soon as we get off, because I don't think I follow you there.
Undreamed Shores Travel.
Undreamed Shores Travel. Awesome. I will look you up. And you should ask people to share pictures of their trips now. That would be great.
Especially on both Instagram and Facebook. I have been that.
Yeah, because it's right now people are dreaming of travel. I know I am. So I got lucky because we did our trip in December, and then I went to California in February, and then I went to Austin in March, just before 2 days before everything closed down. So we were there for a wedding, and it was pretty nerve-wracking flying back, and you're all crammed into this airplane side by side with people. So.
Well, yeah, now you look at the stuff and you're like, ah.
Exactly.
So it's to unpathed waters, undreamed shores most certain. It's from A Winter's Tale.
Okay, that's I love the name. I think it's perfect. So,
yeah.
All right. So tomorrow we have Tina McDermott's coming on. She's going to talk about the importance of movement. And I'm going to give you my little tip now, because I think it is a really good one. You said it earlier. You get stuck in the seat very often. So now, as often as I can, I try not to do Zoom calls, and I ask if we could do a real life phone
Mhm.
call so that I can put you in my ears, right? And I can walk out the front door and just walk circles around my neighborhood. And that's what I do while I do one-to-ones or anything where I know I'm not going to have to take notes,
Mhm.
because it's so important that we move.
Yeah.
It is so important. So, and it's so easy to spend the whole day in your house right now. So try not to do that. Tina's going to give us more tips on that tomorrow.
Great.
Yeah, I want to remind you to subscribe. And I want to tell you something new today. I want to ask you to create a video for Burgers and Bans for suicide prevention. Many of you know that we run a charity for suicide prevention, and what we're looking for is people to create small videos between 30 seconds and 2 minutes that talk about the fact that you are not alone, talk about the message that you aren't alone. I've got 3 of them already in the books. People have already sent them to me. You can send them to me, message me, and I will give you my phone number so you can text them to me. But please do, because we want to get that message out there. Right now, the longer we're in quarantine, the more likely people are to go into a depression. We're seeing it more and more. We had two jumpers last week from the Bay Bridge. We had a third one that I am
Mhm.
absolutely amazed by our Anne Arundel County Police, because they talked him down and it took
That's great.
20 hours. 20 hours he sat on the side of that
Mhm.
bridge and they ended up talking him down.
That's
So
great, though.
oh, thank God. So please do, if you can create a video for us, send it to me, text me, and I'll give you my phone number so you can text it to me. I would really, really, really love to see your videos, and your videos encouraging other people and showing them that they are not alone. Cindy, this has been absolutely wonderful. I am so glad you came on. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Oh, it's been a joy talking with you. I mean, when we
Yeah.
did our one-to-one, I enjoyed talking with you. So we'll have
Well,
to do
and we're
another one
definitely going
soon.
to plan a trip. Yes, actually, I was going to say we're going to plan a trip. So hang on the line and I will talk to you a little bit about that.
All right.
All right, guys, I will see you Wednesday. I was supposed to see you tomorrow, but I messed up my calendar. So we're going to see you Wednesday with Tina McDermott. And hopefully we'll get Myosha on here. She was going to come on tomorrow, but we'll get her on another day. She's got an amazing story of not being able to go to college because she wasn't sure she could afford it, and starting a business and creating an incredible life. So we're going to talk to her at some point soon too. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.